Are you considering getting into running but have no idea where to start? Perhaps you've completed a few fun runs here and there, but the thought of running 10 kilometers, let alone a half marathon, just seems crazy. And those out there completing marathons are just on another universe. Don't worry, I was there at one point in time. Hey, I'm Jack, a two-time marathoner with a serious love for carbs. My running journey started last year in 2023, and today I'm here to help you start on yours. Let's get into it. Before lacing up our shoes, it's important that we define what our running goal will be. Now, everyone's running goals are going to look slightly different. Perhaps yours is to run 10 kilometers comfortably without coughing up a lung, or looking at running 3 days consistently over the course of a week. Lastly, and probably the most common, is to train up for a certain distance race. Your 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathon, marathon, and ultra marathon if you're feeling ambitious. Many times we get started with something with no clear goal in sight. A similar phrase that I hear every now and then is enjoying the journey rather than getting to the destination. However, I would also say that in order for us to enjoy the journey, which is arguably the most important part, we need to work out what that destination is. And many times we don't have that destination written down or defined. Systems allow us to achieve our goals, but we can't expect to use the same systems and expect the same results. We're all on a different stage in the race that we call life. As Dan Koh says in his book, The Art of Focus, a system is a group of components that work together to achieve a common goal. Roads are a system for efficient transportation. These roads have evolved and become more efficient as problems revealed themselves. Collective mental energy is what creates modern power. So what does a system that allows us to achieve our running goals look like? Well, here's mine. I'm going to use a recent goal that I completed in running my second marathon. This is what that system looked like. The first part to the system is identify. I had this goal of running my second marathon after completing the New York City Marathon last year. In this first part, I had to identify how long I would be training for and what training plan I would follow. Having completed a marathon previously, I thought 16 weeks was a good time frame for me to train. But before committing to any type of training, I had to work backwards. This was looking at when the marathon race day was and working 16 weeks back into my calendar to see what my life would be looking like. Before even selecting my training plan, discovered that I'd be away for 2 weeks in Japan, so had to factor that in when selecting my marathon training plan. This is when I decided to extend that 16-week time frame to 18 weeks to factor in those 2 weeks of travel, knowing well that I probably wouldn't complete all those sessions listed in those 2 weeks. Next was identifying the training plan that I'd use. This was based off of two key components. First, the training program that I completed last year to run the New York City Marathon, and secondly, my extensive research completed on running related subreddits over on Reddit to see what kind of marathons other runners across the world were using. This is when I discovered Hal Higdon and the variety of marathon training programs he offers on his website for completely free. As a result, I selected the Intermediate 2 training plan on his website to use for my second marathon training. The second part to my system is implement. Now, having selected my training plan, it was about implementing it into my weekly schedule. Firstly, and admittedly an extra process, decided to write out the training plan on a Word document. This is where I decided to shift the sessions to suit my schedule. Working from home twice a week allowed me the opportunity to put my longest and most intense sessions on those days. From there, I created each of these sessions as a workout on the Garmin Connect website, placing them in the calendar to be ready and synced to my watch as soon as I was starting to train. I will admit, this was a slight drawback after having a coach last year who would do this process entirely for me. However, this was also a good learning opportunity to understand the process of implementing a training program onto a piece of technology that allowed me to complete it without having to think what I was doing whilst running. The next part of my system was ACT, and this one was the most fun. I had my entire training plan ready and synced to my Garmin watch. As soon as day one of training rocked up, it was about me taking action and getting out there to complete it. Action is the foundational key to all success. Pablo Picasso. Training for an event like a marathon requires small parts of action over a long period of time. It's also what's so attractive but also so frustrating at the same time with marathon training. At times, you're going through the fog not knowing if you'll actually even run the race. Getting up on cold winter mornings throughout the week, alone, day in and day out. Relating to my goal of running my second marathon, I had the realization though after completing my first that I could actually do it. And I'll admit, I didn't have this knowledge or this feeling when I was training for my first marathon last year. The last part to my system is Align. Life happens and things can change every so often, no matter what our running goal is. It's important to remember that whether it's a training plan that we follow or a series of steps that we're trying to complete, sometimes it doesn't have to go to a T. For example, when first starting to train for my second marathon, I'd actually only worked from home once a week, so this was usually completing my midweek long run on that day. But as I got permission to work from home twice a week, this caused me to shift a couple sessions around to ensure I could complete my longest session as well as my most intense session on those days that I was working from home. Furthermore, it's particularly important, especially when it comes to marathon training, to factor in the fatigue and tiredness levels. This usually happens towards the end of a marathon training plan, where your body is so fatigued and you actually just need to take an extra day off to allow your body to recover. Sometimes we do need to take those 1 to 2 days off to allow our bodies to get back to normal, and that's completely okay. Missing 2 sessions over the course of training for the past 4 months wasn't going to derail my chance of achieving my goal. A key part to the alignment of any system is the support networks we have. Using our running goals here, this could be our coach, our physio, even our friends or family who keep us accountable to achieving those. Training as a runner is hard, but remember, you're not alone in doing so. Now, while this system worked for me in achieving my goal of running my second marathon, I've identified small parts to the system that I'm going to tweak before starting to train for my third marathon later this year. No matter what our goal is or what we are training for, we must experiment with the systems that we use in order to identify what works best to allow us to achieve our goals. While this system worked for me, it may not necessarily work for you entirely, and that's completely okay. And experimenting is applicable to any component of the system. You don't have to suddenly overhaul everything there. For example, if we look at the component of ACT that I talked about in my system, it could be experimenting with this process of acting to complete my running sessions. If I'm working very early hours in the morning, potentially shifting or experimenting with running in the afternoon to see if that supports my energy levels. I've also recently gotten into reading about business, personal development, and psychology, and it has actually informed part of this inspiration for making today's video, because I had realized that over these past couple of years and even in my working life, I'd always had systems that I'd use unconsciously without realizing that I could actually talk about it and share it with you all to show you that this is one system of the many systems that I use to achieve my goals. So there we have it. This was my system that allowed me to complete my running goal of completing my second marathon. And hopefully you can use it too to get started on your running journey. Have fun with it, experiment, and enjoy the process of finding a system that works for you. If you're interested in watching more of my content, I recommend watching one of these videos up here on the screen now. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.